start shortly.
We're going to start the second debate soon. Stay tuned. Yeah, the next debate is coming, and let's welcome Dr. Abdullah Ramadan. Please, a hand of applause.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, am I audible? My voice is good, Willa? Is it good? It's good to have you all here with us. I think we've started really well. The tempo is going up. We're going to keep hopefully elevating it upward with our second debate. And it's going to be about, maybe before talking about it, it's going to be about natural resources and its sacredcy. And it's related, talking about even sustainability in that whole context together. And to set the stage for the talk and see, how we can maybe facilitate for our discussion, I would like to invite our keynote speaker, Dr. Amjad Al-Qahtani, who's a colleague of mine. She's a climate and sustainability strategist at Aramco, to give us some background into the subject that we'll be talking about today, or debating. The floor is yours, Dr. Amjad.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Good afternoon. I would like to thank the organizers with no names for inviting me to this great session. So the motion of this session is about if the world has enough natural resources to sustain the energy transition toward clean and sustainable energy. By 2050, we could all get the energy we need from renewable or natural resources. This transition is not only possible, but also cost-effective, providing the energy to all in affordable price, and producing it in ways that can be sustained by the global economy and the planet. The transition will present challenges, and I hope in this session we can all understand these challenges, and also at the same time we can get all bring us forward into this renewable economy. There is nothing more important to our ability to create a sustainable future, and you are the future. Thank you for having me again, and I look forward to having a great session with you all.
Thank you so much, Amjad. So maybe if you want to go to the slides, just to show and refresh our memories on how this debate will be structured for those who joined us maybe lately, and maybe for our online attendees. Again, am I audible? Or maybe stand up here, maybe for now. Yes. So this is the debate structure. So it's key elements. I think the two debaters, the Spectrum members, and of course you guys, the audience. I'm part of it, in a short part, which is a lead moderator. So we'll start with the two debaters for the for and against to present their arguments for 5 minutes, then reboot it for another 5 minutes, and invite our Spectrum member to sit into these Spectrum colors. Where do they sit? And hopefully initiate a discussion, where then we're going to have a Q&A session, and I've finalized it with our final remarks by the two debaters. So here is our team. So for the for debater, we have Rufaid Al-Yamani from Aramco. And for the against debater, we have Shahad Suleimani from KAUST to hopefully fight against each other around this topic that I will introduce in a bit. And we have our Spectrum members, Iman, Lema, Faisal, Ina, Rashid, Shahad, and Talia. So this starts our, the motion where I need your help to hopefully set the stage with your perceptions and see if you change your mind after we hear our debates. So the motion is, let me take my time into introducing it. So the world has enough natural resources with the, big bold letters, natural resources, to sustain the energy transition towards a clean, sustainable energy by 2050. So again, let me say it again. So the world has enough natural resources to sustain the energy transition towards a clean, sustainable energy by 2050. So I'd like you to, go to this barcode. It's a Zoom meeting. Go there, and you're going to receive a poll to vote for whether you which spectrum of these colors. So the time starts now. Is it open now, the poll? Okay. So I'll start the time now. Now, strongly agreeing this positive statement, shall I say? Yeah. It seems like the majority is there. Or if you have any issues, let us know. Yeah. Favor of this statement, of this motion? Two more seconds to maybe for the final comers. Even though I have a good yield, 75 out of 75 have voted. Anyone who didn't vote yet? 1, 2. Let's get started. So you took the screenshot of the, okay, perfect. So it seems like most of the people strongly agree with that motion, but let's hear it. Let me just first introduce our key main debater, Fahd Yamani. Please, can you join us to the podium? And with a big round of applause, please, for me. And the others. And Shahad Sulaimani from the strongly disagree side, or the against debater. And good luck with that, Shahad. A bigger round of applause, please. Shahad?
Yes, I'm here.
So as I said, the structure is that you'll have each 5 minutes to present your motion, and then reboot whatever the other is saying. Maybe take notes, and hopefully can have an engaging session. So again, the motion is the world has enough natural resources to sustain the energy transition towards a clean, sustainable energy by 2050. And the time starts now for you, Rufaida. Please go ahead.
I'm not sure if I'm not. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fahd Yamani. I'm a geophysicist and I work in Aramco. And actually, I applied for KPM University to get my master's in sustainable and environmental energy management. And actually, to debate that, I strongly agree with the statement. I want to dissect it first. The world has enough natural resources to sustain the energy transition towards a clean and sustainable energy by 2050. So as a definition for natural resources, it is natural resources, basically materials and substances that naturally occur on planet Earth. And some are renewable and some could go obsolete. Now that we combine both the definition under natural resources, I would like to present 3 main takeaways of why I agree with this statement, and hopefully I can persuade you all to agree with me. The first point is being that the stakeholders of non-renewable natural resources providers are critically escalating their business model to being carbon neutral. So as global capital, they are adapting to carbon neutrality and sustainable assets as well. So according to the climate change initiative of oil and gas, carbon capture usage and storage projects, which is the CCUS projects, they are very attractive now and they are effective, and they directly contribute to the deployment to the new business model of the adaptation of net zero. And I'm going to give an example of the fastest growing industries that are adapting this carbon neutrality, which are petrochemicals, electricity, ammonia, and fertilizer industries. And in Saudi Arabia, we have a facility that is in construction to be built in the east coast. It's going to host up to 44 million tons per year until 2035. And it is part of the driver to store enough carbon and enough carbon extraction from the oil industry. Second point is to talk about renewable. So renewable natural resources are in demand. And as climate action is taking place, as well as the introduction to carbon tax, the growth for the demand of renewable is also increasing. And we're very optimistic about the communities that are demanding demanding renewable natural resources to be the generator of their households, their power. So according to the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, it has shown during the pandemic, renewable energy has shown great resilience. And we have also observed that during our pandemic, the non-renewable sector was shaky, but the renewable actually showed great resilience. And with that, it was forecasted to add more and more gigawatts into storage capacity, energy storage capacity that are coming from renewable. And I would like to highlight for renewables, for example, for voltaic, for solar voltaic, it was basically costing about 181 in 2018. It was costing about $181 per kilowatt hour. And there has been a reduction that is made it to $100 per kilowatt hour. So we noticed there's also a reduction in price, growth in demand for renewables. There's also an interesting article about climate financing from the International Monetary Fund. It talked about the great way that how can we have the energy transition basically finance itself. And I think that's a great and important point, because cost is one of the reasons that we are hesitant toward going to renewables or something similar. It's forecasted that $78 billion are going to be taken out from the coal and invested in the renewable.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll jump into my last point, which is basically electrification and decarbonization. I want to mention that for electrification, it is so important to include the 4 critical metals, which are lithium, graphite, copper, and nickel. These 4 critical metals, they do exist in our natural world, and we have large reserves. And in order to build, for example, energy storage, lithium batteries, you name it, these critical metals exist. One last sentence.
You can continue. We'll have another 5 minutes to
No
maybe
worries. Thank you so
continue
much.
to catch up. Give her a big round of applause, please. So now I'll hand it over to Shahid to talk about the inside of it. And the floor is yours. You may start now.
Okay. So
Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. So I will try to convince you now why I disagree with this statement. So my first point, if we look among all the energy resources globally in the whole world, I have one statistic that said in 2009, fossil fuels was 80.3% of our global, the energy that we are using globally. And then 10 years later, people were focusing and research was very growing on renewable energy, hydrogen production, solar panels, and other sources of renewable energy. Do you guys have any idea how many percent we have eliminated from the fossil fuel percentage? Does anyone have any idea? How much? 20?
20, say.
20? No, unfortunately. I'm sorry to tell you, but it is only 0.1. So the percentage dropped from 80.3 to 80.3% in just 10 years. From transition, like we just cut only 1%. Can you imagine that? How is it very small compared? We are still now having the 80.2%. Can you believe that? Myself, I didn't believe until I read so many reports about it. So my other point is, can we really just rely on just renewable energy in the upcoming 27 years until 2050? For me, I don't think so. Why? Let us not forget about the people who have to access affordable and renewable and clean energy and sustainable also. Let's not forget about Africa. You know, there was the NJ Ayuk, the executive chief of energy in Africa. He said, when everybody now is talking about net zero and net zero, he said about net zero, not for Africa, not yet. Africa must fight energy poverty with oil and gas development. This is unfair. We cannot suddenly come and tell to these people that you cannot have an energy. If we are really going to cut in 2050 the 80% of the fossil fuels. And the third point I want to emphasize on, how many and how much resources we need to achieve full energy transition. According to a recent statistics, do you know how many kilograms we need for copper in producing wind power? Do you have guys any idea how many? Just to produce 1 kilowatt of electricity, how many kilograms of copper do we need to make this happen? It is 8,000 kilograms. Can you believe that? It is so much. Like, and if you look into that, like from a very far perspective, like in the upcoming years, what will happen if we are still using a lot of metals and a lot of, you know, like copper and nickel and these elements? I think they will vanish at the end. And let us compare between the electrical vehicles and our conventional car vehicles. Anybody knows our conventional car vehicles that we are using today and now? What are the metals that they are using, like in the conventional cars? Like what kind of metals? Anybody have any idea? We are just using in the conventional cars the manganese and the copper. And they are together, like the manganese alone, we use around maybe 50 kilograms, and the copper is 40 kilograms. But look at the electric vehicles. You have so many elements and so many metals you have to use. You have to use the copper, the lithium, the nickel, the cobalt, the manganese, and even the graphite. And it's all sums up above around maybe 220 kilograms.
Thank you so
let
much.
us put that in mind.
Thank you very much. Now I'll hand it back to you, Fahd. May get started, and you want maybe wrap up your final point and go to the rebuttal. Rebutting what she's saying. Go ahead.
Actually, this is a smooth transition to the rebuttal. Thank you so much for mentioning the critical metals, because that was actually my last point. And I have an argument to you. So we know that metals are expensive, but we do have large reserves in South America, Australia, India as well. The greatest thing about critical metals is that they are recyclable, which means they don't lose their chemical and physical properties, and we can use them infinitely. So that does not mean there's an end. We can just get more and more metals. We can actually recycle them. There can be new business models introduced in where it can finance itself. I also want to talk about the cost and immature technologies. So we know that it is costly to transition from the traditional sources of energy into clean and sustainable in less than 30 years. That is a fact. And there's a McKinsey report that said in order to fund it, we need almost 275 billion US dollars, trillion US dollars, and which this estimates to the average household an increase in spending by 7%. So your average daily life, you would probably increase your spending by 7%. That's probably an estimate of what the cost is. So the secret and the best thing about switching to sustainable and clean energy using the natural resources and deploying technologies. Technologies have an exponential nature for growth, for providing great capabilities and performance. And this actually brings us back to the point of the previous debate. How can technology help us? Another point I would like to talk about for rebuttal as well is geopolitics. So geopolitical events could either strengthen our energy transition and help us create a better energy mix, or it either weakens it. So there could be events for areas of conflict, and it could send those people in the areas of conflict generations and decades back when it comes to having advanced resources of energy and how they can fuel and power their cars and homes. On the other hand, these political events and policies, they could smooth out the logistics and policies and pave the way for a diverse energy mix to have clean and sustainable energy by 2050. So though the transition is a topic of debate, clearly, I have presented my points in which I think it is possible transitioning to clean and sustainable energy by 2050 with the current state of natural resources is doable. We need a lot of help, a lot of experts, and a lot of doers. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, over to you, Shahid.
Okay. So, can we think about a little bit? Do you guys hear that we know that Germany and UK, they were the leading of the renewable energy, usage. Did you guys ever hear what happened before months ago? What they were doing? Did you guys hear about it? What they have done? Yes. Bravo, coal. They built mine coals again. So they are now realizing that you cannot rely 100% on just only renewable energy. Because guess what? Because the weather, we cannot control it. Like for sometimes we can have some shiny days, like shiny, nice weathers. And some days it can be like really cloudy. We cannot have any, we cannot generate or get more power from solar panels, for example, and even wind power as an example too. And even the energy that comes from the tidal wave that they are generating the electricity through the water. Also there is another incident about what happened in Norway. they are mainly like using a lot and doing a lot of tidal wave, like the water, using water energy. So what happened to them? They're at the end also went back to the conventional sources of energy, because the rising temperature, what happened last summer in Europe, it dries up the water reservoirs they have, and they didn't have enough energy to supply their country, so they had to act. So again, they came back into the conventional resources. So here what I am emphasizing, yes, I am not saying that we cannot rely on renewable energy, but we cannot rely on them 100%. We have to rely at some point that we will, maybe in 2050, we will reach that stage that we will have, let's say, 50% renewable energy and 50% of fossil fuels, including coal and natural gas and other resources. And thank you. This is my.
Thank you very much. And now I will maybe start the spectrum positioning side. Let's maybe start moving these parts. This is center for you. Again, thank you again for setting the stage for the debate. Nice arguments. We're going to get to hear more of you later on, and maybe as part of the current spectrum, maybe slightly. So spectrum members, hi. Just give us a, yeah, okay. Yes. Again, I think we're short of people. If anyone wants to join us, it's still, the floor is Natalia, please. So may I ask you to sit on whatever position that you believe that in? Okay, good. Anyone else want to join us? Okay, I'll leave it to this. Yes, yes. Diversity. Maybe some male, yeah, some male participants. The time is 0. Let me just restart the time. No. Okay. So the time has started. So I have 18 minutes. ودائما بالعربي نقول خير الامور في الوسط. Let's start with the neutral. And I mean, why didn't you make your mind up? Yani, you need to be somewhere here or there. Yani. Okay, good. Please, let me just bring you a mic first. Microphone, please. Few microphones. I think we have. They are strongly agree. Yani. Guys, microphones. ما عندنا ميكروفون. هذا شغال. شغل لي واحد فيهم. So we're gonna recount that minute. Don't worry. So just introduce yourself, please.
I'm Shahad, an undergraduate physics student at King Abdulaziz University, Jeddah. So I think although we must go green in terms of energy, not because for us and our future and the future of the future generations, because we don't want to leave the planet like completely destroyed, and oil won't last forever. However, after I spent a few weeks at Aramco during my internship, I have a deeper understanding of the oil and gas industry. I think its oil here is to stay. Because it's not only used in energy, it's used in plastic, it's used in paint, in clothing, and many other stuff. The next step for me is, in my opinion, is to be less reliant on oil and gas as an energy source, and make use of the other clean energy sources. But as Dr. Shahad mentioned, she mentioned very valid points about the states of the technology right now we have in terms of clean energy. For example, the availability of metal. We need 7 times the amount of copper to have sustainable energy, to have the sustainable energy we want. And a single mine takes around 10 years to build. So it's not realistic. I think, in my opinion, the future will have a mixture of energy sources that coexist together. Oil will be the baseline for energy. We can use it for more like stuff that needs more energy, like fuel, jet, and other stuff. And we can rely on other renewable energy sources for cars and electricity and whatnot. So I don't think it's either or. I think it's going to be a mixture of a lot of stuff. And to do that, I think we have to invest heavily in resources and to develop more efficient and sustainable way to harvest more energy, because the state of the current renewable energy tools are not efficient enough. So I think more investment in research and development and those status will help us to reach this future, because we must. Saying that, I think that by 2050 is too soon. And that's why I'm only neutral, because I'm a scientist, I'm a physicist. I believe in research and innovation. So I hope and know in the future, by that time, we will innovate something completely new that will have a much sustainable energy harvesting.
Thank you. I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you, Shahid, so much. It could have been a nice concluding remarks, to be honest. Amazing. So maybe since I'm here, for the people, I mean, you're lonely here, and maybe I can help you just to just go ahead. Introduce yourself and.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Ina, and I'm part of Clean Research Center Combustion at Coast. And I'm strongly disagreeing that we have got enough resources to meet the demand by 2050. And my reasons for that is, as it was raised, that we have got enough materials, which I don't believe we do. Because if we, for example, change the whole fleet in the UK by electrical vehicles only, we will need twice the current production of the cobalt, which we have got the world supply. So this is the scale which we need to meet the demand for full electrification, for example. And these materials are very rare, and most of the points were already discovered. So there's very limited amount of these materials available at the moment. And for our human nature as well, we tend to overuse the materials, we overhunt, we also clear the forests. So if we think with that mindset that we have got enough, we will continue using without being mindful about that and about being cautious about how the best ways to distribute our resources. And we also can recycle only 5% at the moment from the batteries for electrical vehicles. When other sources like aluminium, it's very high. So we need the better ways to use these resources.
Thank you very much. So Aina was telling us there are so many issues with human, recycling is not efficient, scale, we have very small base of, unconventional to go in a big scale. There's not enough material to do that. How do you answer this? Maybe to the people who strongly agree with that.
Assalamu alaikum.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Mohammed Al-Aid, mechanical engineer, undergraduate at KFBM. I believe that we can combine the renewable energy sources in the future. We are not only using wind or solar, we combine them all. So we can reduce the amount of natural resources that we spend. Because if we use solar and wind energy, this will make them reliable. Because you said in Germany, for example, Germany actually, they rely on wind power. But if we combine all the sources globally, I believe that we can reduce the natural resources that we use in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can get a reply in a bit. We can maybe introduce yourself and try to.
Okay, my name is Rashid Al-Jahani from Taiba University, Mathematics Department. If we look us in the three problem, the cost, and the innovation, and stronger. Over 30 years, from $77 is if you look to start, we can make the if we can start the energy. There is many metal like magnesium and the beautiful is the sustainable energy is innovation in the chemical energy. Thanks.
Thank you. So there is enough materials that's to believe in. So maybe I'll hand it over to you. And then...
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Iman Al-Khaldi. I'm a pharmacist from Taif University. We are talking about renewable energy. Since we are talking about the renewable energy, we already know that sustainable energy is not only renewable energy. They actually combine both renewable and fossil fuels. But regardless, the motion asked us about if renewable energy can help us, like the sustainable energy, can we sustain the renewable energy with the fossil fuel? Of course we can. There is two new systems they're using now called the smart grid system. The smart grid system will actually help us in reducing, reserving, and actually creating more energy instead of actually taking the fossil fuels and wasting it for nothing. So using the smart grid is it's like the idea of the CPU, the computer. I'm not so sure how can I explain it. Like all the energy from the wind turbines to the solar panels to the fossil fuels will connect it into one smart grid using the IA. The IA will actually analyze the data that will be dispensed by the consumers, like the energy that are consumed by the consumers. The IA will collect that data and collect the data from the energy sources and analyze it in order to manage the power provided to the people and the power produced by the energy sources. And by this smart system, we can actually sustain the energy in order to reach 2050. This is a new system, and the study for this new system was done in 2022 in a new paper for energy. So it's already there, and they already apply it in India. So it's a great point of view for our future regarding the sustainability of energy.
Thank you. So we can be more efficient with AI, with these technologies. So there is maybe down the line a good technologies coming up in the picture. Is that what your point? Okay, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lama Al-Harbi. I'm a chemical engineering student at KFUBM. So I have actually one key aspect to add is that clean energy isn't limited on the traditional energy or renewable energy resources that we know, such as wind, solar, etc. We're talking about the next 27 years. And while currently there's ongoing promising research at MIT that aims to take advantage of the chemistry of living being, specifically bacteria, to produce electricity. So I think that's an important thing to consider in this discussion.
Okay. Thank you very much. Even bacteria is now. Over to you, Tali. You have time. You did your part. I'll go back to you. Maybe Tali, over to you.
First of all,
what's your position, by the way? If you want to just introduce yourself first. And
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Talia Nator. I'm with Saudi Aramco, just graduated from UC Berkeley with a degree in chemical engineering. As you can see, I'm in the agree column. I think it's important to not only consider our feelings about this. Of course, we would like to be sustainable. Of course, we would like to have clean energy. Of course, we would like to think long-term about ourselves and future generations. But we need to think about what the question is asking. Resources currently to sustain the energy transition? Yes, I think we do. Is it clean? Not necessarily. But do we have enough to get to the point where eventually we'll have sustainable energy or sustainable resources that power our grids? I believe so. Why? The transition into sustainable practices, sustainable energy, renewable energy, will not happen unless the price point is right, or it is too painful to continue using the non-renewable resources that we have. For example, if the price of gasoline surpasses the price of, for example, hydrogen, or even electric vehicles, the price for charging, then we would obviously all make the conscious decision. We know that it's not economically feasible to keep using gasoline, for example. Let's say we reach a point where gasoline is very expensive, then we'll all be forced to move over. But now, if we think about it, how many of us have hydrogen vehicles? Electric vehicles?
I wish.
I wish so as well. Hybrid vehicles. Mashallah. 2? Do we have 2 hybrid vehicles here? How many charging stations have we seen here? مثلا بالخبر? Not many. So unless the price is right, corporations and even consumers will not be convinced, will not consciously make the decision to switch over because it's quite painful. It's too expensive at this point. But until we get to that point where it's more economically feasible, there will definitely be a shift. And inshallah, by the time we reach 2050, it will be painful enough for us to move over to sustainable resources. Shukran, Abdullah, back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ranjad, yeah. Okay. So I think you've been waiting a lot you've been stirred enough by their arguments to reply to them, yeah? And at the same time, I would want to invite maybe more of the audience to want to join us if you want, especially for this side.
Just wanted to make a point about relying on the solar and wind. So these are intermittent, so we can't fully rely on them. Smart management of the grid system. It's great if we can do it, but at the moment we can't. Like what was raised before, that heat waves in Europe decreased the production of electricity, for example, from hydro by 12%, from nuclear by 20%. So we can't fully rely just on renewable energy. I think this is the 2 points which I wanted to make.
Yeah.
You want to add?
Yeah, and I just want to say my personal opinion about like, okay, yeah, it's a great if we like apply AI to help us in sustaining energy. But if we go back 1 point, if we go back just 1 point back, like, okay, we are using AI. So who is operating the AI? It is electricity. So we will have to recharge it multiple times. It needs, like in the near future, it needs eventually replacing of batteries, and then okay, we will throw away these batteries. How we are going to recycle them? Like, you know, there is a lot of
we are back to the battery. Yes, okay. You see, regarding the smart grid, maybe because I was really like over the place, I did not explain it clearly. The smart grid, it's corrected. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
The smart grid using AI, the AI is actually, you said it's not, you cannot, it needs electricity, correct?
Yeah.
The electricity that is required, we can actually generate it from the renewable source. You said that the problem with renewable source is actually the intermittent problem. That's correct.
Yeah.
And the solution for this, when it comes to renewable energy, is the hybrid renewable هو hybrid renewable energy resources. Instead of renewable energy resources, they included the hybrid, meaning they will use like the wind turbines to cover the lack of the solar system, and the solar system to cover the lack of the wind. So let's say that in the Saudi Arabia, we have like the wind and the solar panels, right?
Yeah.
Let's say during this day, we don't have actually the wind. We have the solar power. If there is no wind and there is a solar power, and they were in the hybrid renewable energy source, the solar power will cover the lack of the wind power. And like this. They switch between each other. So they will never be intermittent between the renewable energy sources because we are including all the energy resources we have in the area. So in Saudi Arabia, mainly is the wind and the solar system, like in India, I think, the same problem. They already using the hybrid renewable energy resources, and they are actually working for them. And now they are integrating the smart grid system. And the smart grid system, the problem with it is because it's large, so they made it like interconnected, smaller to distribute it through the villages. And now it has a lot of techniques. You need to look for it from a technician, IT technician or programmer point of view to understand how it works. But if it requires energy, the energy that can be required by the system, it will be by the renewable energy that we are actually providing. So that's my answer.
But what about the natural resources?
Yes,
Like,
yes,
what about the
and-
materials?
What
Yeah.
natural?
Cost, yeah.
You know, the
Yeah.
natural resources, what we are talking about exactly. Do you mean the electricity? Well, what
no,
are
No,
what
no.
are
wind
the grid?
turbines,
No.
the
You
solar
mean the
panels, all
you
of
mean
these,
the solar panel, right?
and all of these elements, you know, the
Yeah.
batteries, all of this. I mean, I think that they've raised many points that we don't really have enough natural
Yeah,
resources to
and
maintain
even
these.
You
demands.
mean
even
like
I want-
creating the battery?
No, and
natural
even I
zero-
want to emphasize another point about like when you are explaining about, okay, using AI and big transistors and big stuff. So like, let me ask question to the audience. Like these devices or these machines or the smallest or the simplest example that we have in our hands. We have microchips and microsensors. They are made out of what? Anybody have any
Silicon.
idea? Yeah, like, but
silicon.
yeah, but like they are made out, not only silica, but they are made out of many like toxic metals or toxic chemicals or whatever, like because we are not involved in this process. But like my idea, like if we are going, for example, if we are going to use these smart grid systems in the whole world, how many kilograms or how many million or billion of tons that we need, for example, for lithium or heavy metals, so we can fabricate like such systems like this, like, and then can we think about the recyclability of these devices or of these, you know, like, can we think about the recyclability and reproducibility? No, it's not. They are not. Like, for example, let me ask you a question. Amongst the audience here, who every year buying a new iPhone every September, rushing to the stores whenever a new iPhone comes?
It's a lot.
Everybody,
Yeah.
yes.
So
So
maybe
it's like, yeah, so it's like we are
$100.
accumulating, like through the years, when we are going to the future, we are really accumulating and polluting our planet by our attitudes.
Unuseful
like,
materials. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Talia, what do you want to answer?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to take maybe an unpopular opinion in this group and say I agree with you, Shahad. Currently, the rate at which we consume is not sustainable.
Yeah, it is.
Like you said, recycling is inefficient. The consumerism or the kind of capitalistic mindset about purchasing goods
yes,
unsustainably in an unsustainable matter, definitely something that as a society and not necessarily even a Saudi society, but a global
globally,
culture.
It's not just here.
Yes,
it is spread in the whole world.
So you want to move your place now?
No.
Okay, there's a catch. Okay. I want to hear it. Yeah.
This is the intro. So I agree, but at some point, as we deplete these resources, there will have to be a change. So if, let's say, at some point, come 1 September, in the future Septembers, and instead of the new iPhone, what is the price of the latest iPhone? Anyone know?
5,000.
Yeah.
5,000.
Yeah,
let's say 5,000
like the minimum. Yeah, 5,000 the minimum.
Let's say because of the increase in the price of the precious metals used in the motherboard and the sensors, let's say it's now 10,000 riyals for an iPhone. Will people buy it? Do you think?
Well, I believe me. People now, wallahi, people will buy. Why? Because do you remember iPhone? How much was it when it first launched? Like the first generation, it was with how many? 1,500. I remember 1,200. And the people in that time, they were saying, "Oh no, this is expensive." And whoever has the first generation iPhone, he was like, "Oh, he have this touch screen. The iPhone is super expensive." But now, like if you realize year by year, it's getting really crazy expensive.
Yes, صح.
Like
But
so,
now,
this is
let's think
like,
about
this is,
it.
yeah, but
Yes,
this is my
go ahead.
point. That's what
I see. I
want to
definitely see your point.
emphasize.
But now let's see. If your iPhone is 10,000 riyals, and how much does a car battery cost? Anyone know? Rough number.
500 ريال.
500
Yeah.
riyal. So your iPhone is now 10,000 riyals. Your car battery is now 1,000 riyals.
Yeah.
Your car is double. Your what else? The wiring to build homes, the materials required to build buildings.
Even the concrete. Now
Even the
everything
concrete.
is
So now
increasing,
everything
yeah.
will be expensive.
Yes. So
Then
and
what's
and it
when
is,
then naturally what will happen next?
yeah, economic crisis. Yes, it is.
I don't disagree, but at some point, someone, whether it be governments, organization, corporations, will have to change the way that they work in order to manage the economic crisis.
Yeah.
So at some point, we're going to say, okay, this is not working. We're all going into crisis. It's going to be an extremely dystopic land that we live in.
Yeah.
What's the solution? And the solution will have to be something that happens, because the alternative is, I don't know, living outside in the wilderness, like بالبر, زي البدو, in a tent. يعني, what is the alternative?
So we're wrapping up our spectrum session. Maybe one last remark, if anyone maybe want to go to this side.
Yeah.
Just go final remark here. Yeah. Anyone else want to say something? Ella, please.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the secret is how to build an intelligent energy systems, how to optimize the natural resources. If we continue doing like this, we will never achieve this by 2050. But
Positivity, you mean, huh? We
yeah,
still
yes.
believe it.
But if we optimize and keep optimizing and keep developing and using AI, for example, we can optimize the use of materials.
We're going to get it right eventually. Maybe one last remark, because we're running out of time. Anyone want to say? Okay, Shahad. Back to the neutral.
Although I'm hopeful, and my statement was hopeful, I have to agree with Rana that economic values will be the future. Obviously, we can see the economy after COVID, what happens, and with the rise of prices of metals and whatnot. Although I want to be sustainable and preach all this stuff, I think economically going more renewable is the only way.
So please give me a big round of applause for our Spectrum audience. So now it's your turn, the audience. I know I see a couple of interested people who would like to ask a question. Maybe Professor Bassam, you want to? But please.
I was interesting listening to all of you about natural resources. So let's think, what is a natural resource? Something that is not human-made. Okay? So is sun energy natural resource? Is wind natural resource? Geothermal? Oil? Gas? Should I keep going? Okay, so here's some fun facts, yeah? We have enough geothermal energy to last us for 70,000 years. We have, in the first 8 minutes of the day, okay, when the sun shines, first 8 minutes, we have enough energy that reaches the earth to last us for the whole year. We need to bottle it and transport it, okay? We have billions of tons of coal, natural gas, oil, and uranium, and so on. So the question, which is really sort of an interesting debate, is you moved away from, do we have enough, to is it expensive? The question is, if we have the will to transition to a sustainable future, do we have enough resources? and I have to agree, I'm sorry, that we have enough resources. The question remains, does this resources include political will, money? Are we willing to pay? Somebody was talking about the pain. Is the pain enough for us to, okay? But the thing is, also then what our priorities is climate change important enough for us to actually make this difference? So I'd like you to think about that. Is natural resource, what does it entail? We could still use, for example, oil and then capture the CO2 and store it, for example. That's a transitional way to do it, to do what's called CCUS, carbon capture, use, or storage. So I want to put it to you, and I'll be interested in others to actually debate me if you like, that we do have enough natural resources. Do we have enough political will to do it?
The will, yeah, the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bassam. I just have a question for you or to the general audience. I 100% agree with you. We do have the resources, but when it comes to the timeline that we're trying to achieve it, when you break it down to the dollar, how much does this make sense, and how much is the poor going to suffer? You know, you're wearing a nice suit, I'm wearing a nice thobe and all that, but hey, there's poor people out there. You know, we've seen what the energy prices did in Europe, and many people, they're not able to save money. In the US, where it's not as severe, people are struggling. I've had friends that sell their car in the United States because it's just too expensive to fill up gas. And it's not even a big gas guzzler vehicle. It's just a V4 Toyota Camry, you know? So when we're talking about this, how much is the poor going to suffer if we try to accelerate this timeline by 2050? Is it possible? Are we taking into consideration the minimum threshold that poor people are going to suffer, or we're just going to say, okay, well, we have to shave off some of the global population to be even more sustainable?
Who's wearing this? You want to answer? So if I don't want to answer you.
Thank you so much for your point. That's actually one of the key point of discussion in COP27. And what they have agreed on is that to create a fund, basically صندوق تمويل, for these third world countries, and expecting from first world countries to participate and give money and basically invest and add more money. So it could help the developing world. Now, the discussion is that since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in 1700 something, carbon emissions were happening, right? But nobody actually paid attention until, let's say, 2018 or some time before. Now, what's the first damage? Basically, developing countries and poor people. They need their oil, they need their energy resources, the conventional energy resources. And how can we help each other? So the developed world is enjoying the luxury of transitioning to renewables and just basically watching the developing countries just starting their industrial revolution. And that's what was the key discussion in COP27. Thank you so much for bringing that up. So basically, since all the countries were attending, representatives, this is the agreement, is to start a fund, put in money to help each other, so least damage possible, the less damage to happen to developing countries. And interestingly enough, Saudi Arabia stands between developing and developed country. And we actually have the best of both worlds here. And that's why the Saudi Green Initiative decided by 2060, we're going to reach carbon neutrality. So I really think that, back to the statement, I agree, we do have enough. And I hope nobody gets hurt, honestly, in transitioning to clean energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So any more questions from the audience or remarks or comments? Please go ahead.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. I am Ali Asiri, undergraduate student, Chemical Engineering Department at KFUBM. My question actually to the strongly agree main debater. You stated in your argument that the renewable energy is a really promising sources of energy for the future. And you stated also there is a lot of natural sources. But you stated actually that the renewable energy finances itself. Can you explain to me how it would finance itself? Because what I know actually the research on this field it costs a lot of money, and so we can get use of them. It costs a lot of money. Can you explain that to me, please?
Oh, you can.
Can you hear me? Okay, so like you said, the research for financing, for having a renewable financing itself is in the, I wouldn't say immature, but not as mature as we'd like. But the point is to introduce carbon taxation. So for example, if we were to tax the coal, it would, the carbon coming from coal, it would finance the renewable. So there would be like a channel in between, and that's how it is going to finance itself. And maybe it will hurt in the very beginning for the first 5 years. But let's say looking at it until 2050, the people who are working in the coal industry, for example, are going to benefit. There will be compensations because the renewable is already financed by what they have paid, and it will pay off. So the cost of transition, it is high. And that's one scenario to look at it, that carbon taxation and more regulation, more strict policies. But the cost of no transition, that's even higher. Thank you for your question.
I have a question.
I
will come back to you both. I will. Can you be brief? We'll go to the after. I'll come back. I'll try to.
Thank you very much. My name is Yakub Udil, and I'm from physics department here in KFUPM. So I just want to comment based on what Professor has said. You know, we can do all our best to promote the renewable energy adoption. But my concern is, you have countries like Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, and many countries, our income usually 90% is from oil. So what do you think this government, what can you do to convince them, to adopt renewables and, drop oils, which is the main source of their revenue? Other countries, maybe they generate their income from tax and many other things. So I think it's not a problem for them. So what do you think we can do to have the political will from these countries?
I want to take that. Why would countries who's doing well with the conventional resources, why would they move to renewables? Yeah, if like countries like Nigeria and Saudi Arabia, they're doing really well with conventional resources. Why would you go to renewables and change? Is that correct? My paraphrasing to your question. I'm sorry if
what I was saying.
What's the motive? Why would you go to renewables?
Should they, you'll have a problem politically. They will not support. Ideally, they shouldn't, because maybe their internally generated revenue comes from oil, right? So if they say, okay, they have transited 100% to renewables, then what are they going to do with their oil? Okay. Who is going to buy their oil, which is the main, national cake? So that's the question.
I think this will sound weird and conflicting, but we will never be able to not use fossil fuel for now, for never. If Saudi Arabia is going to sell some of the oil, they will sell it for rocket science, because people are planning to go to space already, and they need fuel. They cannot generate that fuel for the rockets from renewable resources. They only can generate it from the fossil fuel. So maybe the transition of Saudi Arabia and other countries that have oil, they will make the fossil oil for this kind of achievement, and other renewable sources will be for electricity, households, and etc.
I have another point to add. We're already working on it at NUM, since we're working on producing energy from solar and wind as well. So yeah, I think we're already working on it. And
so we have a question there. Can you stand up and please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Linda Malki. I just want to share my opinion. I get how it could be hard to transform from our energy use and start using renewable energy. However, we need to develop new better ways to produce energy. And I know it could be hard, but I know that we can, okay? I have heard that using hydrogen on massive scales, it could have some problems, but So having multiple resources is very useful. And with all of the work that is being done, we will reach very high levels with the renewable energy. So yeah, that's my opinion. So thank you. I just want to say that you guys really motivate me as a high school student. So thank you.
We have one more, I think, thank you very much for your comments. Let them have, I think, a couple. We'll come back to you. I think we're good in time. So I'm looking at time. Don't worry. We'll finish at 4.
Hello, I'm a high school student, so this is my perspective. I might not know as much, but my question is to the strongly disagree. You've basically made a point on how renewable energy is not sustainable and we should not 100% rely on it. As someone who studies chemistry and physics on a high school level, we've studied multiple times on how it's something that we can trust and rely on. It is something that does not end. The sun is always there, the winds are always there, water is always there. We always have a way to find the ability to use renewable energy. I don't really get why you're saying we cannot. What are you going to rely on? You're going to rely on coal? You're going to rely on fossil fuels? How are you going to constantly rely on this? Not only does it like at some point affect us, it's not the best solution. Renewable energy, not only does it help us, it helps the environment.
Please. Why are you demotivating our high school students? Please. We don't want to come up with.
I'm so sorry. Like, I think. Yeah. So the point was not that we should scrap altogether renewable energy. It's the perfect, I think, not perfect, but it's one of the solutions forward. But what I was trying to say that we cannot fully rely because we need some kind of the storage capacity to store this energy to use the smart grids, then to distribute it throughout the day because of the amount of energy we can receive from the solar and from the wind varies during the day, right? So we can store it in some place, and this would require as well the materials. And as Professor Dali said, that we have got enough natural resources. What about the critical materials? Do we have enough to produce the batteries? And if we continue in the scale we are using them now, and we cannot recycle them at the moment, like just 5% is nothing for me. How are we going to achieve it? And how can we fully then rely on renewable?
Especially when scaling it up. Because I want to give the audience some fair time, please. Please go ahead. Introduce yourself and ask your question or maybe comment.
Hello again. I'm Fajr Al-Aradi. First of all, I'm from med school, so don't judge hard. I'm from not college or Aramco, so yeah. This reminded me of a debate I did before in 4th grade, maybe. A question for strongly disagreed. You said that we can't rely on electronics a lot, and the simplest example is the phones. But how many phones are here? How many people are using it right now? So imagine the future, like now the fossil fuels and all the natural things, things we use, we're not using it more. We're going to the side, we're using electronics more. So in 2030, we're using robotics, technology more. So how can you say like it's not an easy resource, especially for Saudi Arabia? And especially for now, we're trying to get more resources and more technology we use. So it's just came on my mind.
Yeah. So if you think about it from another perspective, like what we were mentioning about the recyclability, and like for example, when the robotics they die, or like for example, say they somehow malfunction, and then what do we do with them? We will dump them. Where? In the desert, in the whatever. And if you think about the materials that they are made from, like they are made from precious materials, like I was emphasizing on nickel, cobalt, manganese, like, and whenever we are using them more, then later on in the future, where we are going to head, like what we have emphasized before, that Every year, the phones and the electronics and the cars and everything in the world is becoming more expensive. So now when we are using these natural resources, okay, we are using them like over and over and over. And then when we reach to a point that, okay, we realize that we don't have enough. So then what will happen? What will happen in the whole world? Everybody will fight, the prices will increase, and we will have economic crisis. And like, that's why, like I'm saying, that we cannot rely 100% on them. We can, let's say in 2050, we can maybe somehow reach to a point that maybe, let's say 50%, 50-50, like somehow, or even let's say 40%, 60% of, but still we have to realize that we cannot cut fossil fuels like forever or emit them, because without them, like I believe that we cannot survive, like I believe, because like heading towards the renewable energy alone 100%, it is not feasible in the upcoming future. Thank you for your question.
All right. Two last fast comments from these two.
Hello, everyone. Firstly, I thank you all for this great debate. It was really amazing for me. Secondly, I have some observations and for the examples and the number that this agreed woman said. You said this amount of copper will produce this amount of energy or this amount of power. But what I know is that power is not, it's always going to be generated. And the copper, it will be just used for one time. So how can you say this amount of copper will generate this amount of energy or this amount of power? So I think that's, copper is not just one time use. It's not like our phones. It's one time use or something like that. That's the first problem. The second problem also is that copper could be recycled. So if we just, for example, this turbine is broken down, we could take the copper and recycle it and use it in another turbine. So copper could be used again. Same things for the copper, plastic, some polymers, we could use them again. So what's the problem here? There are some examples that you are saying, they are not that much with your idea, I think. And there are some points that when you say, we will find a solution, we'll find somehow solution, we'll find some outpoint, I think that's not really something to put in your argument. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.
My comment was about the scale. So for example, if we want to change the whole fleet of UK by just using the electrical vehicles, we need to double our production of cobalt. And we're going to use 3/4 of lithium, which is currently not so much recyclable.
Dr. Ayman, please.
Very interesting discussion indeed. I've enjoyed it as well. I have one question. At the current rate of consumption and at the current practices of waste management, will we have enough resources?
If we fix, if we time freeze the technologies as it is, would we have enough? Like,
can I repeat? At the current rate of consumption and the current practices of waste management, do we have enough resources to create a sustainable future or to sustain our energy?
and do you want to put some context into
don't
how much
so.
we're not recycling? Recycling.
I definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the world is so interconnected more than we think.
Yeah.
Even if you consider your abaya, you don't know where it's coming from, right? It's, in terms of energy and resources.
Yeah.
So how bad is our waste management? If you want to just, because it's, I think it's very pivotal part of your question.
Well, I think what comes to my mind in this discussion is it goes back to really how the flow and the concentration of materials. So we have this amount, how it's concentrated, how it flows. Is that back to like circular economy? How do we really practice? And will we be able to reach this stage by 2030 or by 2050? Because they're like, time is flying. Are we doing enough?
Talia, please.
You bring up, is this on?
Yes, yes.
You bring up an excellent point. At the current rate of consumption, I don't believe, I'm not sure of the numbers, but I don't believe that we have enough of all the natural resources that we require for all of the current operations that as humans we do today. With the current mindset, company culture, and governmental culture. However, at some point, the culture will have to change because, as you said, we'll run out. What if we do run out? At that point, you reach a phase of necessity is the mother of all invention. When you have to change, then you will change. Before the point where you have to, it takes too much effort for us to, for example, change where if you get home and, for example, you put your bag or you put your gal and your ghitra on a table, if your mother, for example, or your wife said, I don't want you to put your bag here, or I don't want you to put your gal here. How many days will it take for you to change the place where you drop it off?
But this is a very dangerous path in a global scale.
Yes.
This is very dangerous. If we continue as now, I mean, the earth will sustain itself, but we will not sustain ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess then it becomes a question of policy, a question of what are the priorities of governments, of companies, and of organizations to reach a point to recognize how important it is to change this culture.
Good insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Anyone
much.
like to add?
Yes, I think we're running out of time. If we can put because to respect our virtual audience, we have a question from one of them, Abdullah Al-Sam. So he's asking, or I don't know if it's a comment. We have seen Norway trying to transition to the electrification, and they succeeded in many ways, like increasing the percentage of EV to more than 90% of new cars over the last 2 years. However, their demand of oil has just decreased a little. Is it a significant transitioning away from oil, far more optimistic? I think this is a question to you, guys, or maybe to you. I'll leave it to you to decide. Are we too optimistic when we say? We can keep it. Can you keep the question again? No, even Norway, which is, I would say, a benchmark for going into renewable energy, they still rely on oil. So are we pushing too much for renewable? This is the question.
Like he say, it's optimistic that we are transitioning.
To assume that we can go radically into, deplete, stop using oil. Yeah. So even Norway, as an example, that they went to, heavily into renewables.
Yes.
Their oil consumption did not change much. So that's a case where are we going to stop using oil or not? This is the.
I think he said the consumption lessened.
Just by a little bit.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Since it's a little bit, yeah, I think it's optimistic to transitioning to a renewable and clean energy.
Anyone want to?
Is it consumption or demand?
No, the consumption.
Locally, how they're consuming their energy mix.
So there is a lot.
Can I say something about this? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt the debate, but there's 1.3 billion small cars in the world.
Yes.
And there's 385 million large vehicles in the world. Those will still need oil. Okay? So what the
Ahmed,
yeah, that's right. So what's happening is stabilizing, and eventually the more electric cars go into the market, then less consumption is going to happen. So the fact is that we're selling more cars is fantastic, but it does not going to change the 1.8 million cars in the road. Those will still require oil until their time runs out, an alternative electric. So you have to start somewhere where this replacement is start to happen. And by the way, in Norway, 90+% of their energy comes from hydro, and that's natural resource.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly true.
Back to that point. I think we need to wrap up our discussion. Thank you so much again. I think it's been fruitful. I think I went really over time because I don't want to interrupt. Now going to the final agenda item, let's say, with our debater, Fahd. You want to say maybe your final remarks? You have a microphone.
Thank you so much for listening, and I really appreciate a fruitful discussion. Whether somebody agrees with the statement or not, do we have enough or not? it all brings us back to one point, which is policies, and how are we encouraged to pursue that? For example, like behaviors, consumer behaviors, but I think that's just the end of the pipe. There are products that can be designed in a smart way, in a way that the waste is not waste. It doesn't have an expiry date. So maybe policies to product makers, policies, let's say, for example, I want to store this much carbon, but I don't have a permit for this specific location. How am I going to store? I need a permit. So policies, integrating the need with the demand with policies. I think whether you agree or not, we all need to have a dialogue. And in order to do something, you need a permit. So thank you so much for listening.
Precise. So now over to you, Shahad, to maybe say your final concluding remarks.
So thank you very much. Thank you guys, and thank you for all the Spectrum participants and debaters, and thank you audience for listening. It was really fruitful discussion. I really enjoyed it myself. So like I want to say my final remarks in just very simple statement. Like what it is mentioned in Quran is a phrase that says that, like by meaning that God will not change people unless they change themselves first. So what I am trying here to say, in order for us to transition 100% of renewable energy, or even somehow some percentage, we have to start from ourselves in changing our attitude and our cultures, like what they are previously mentioning. So we have to start also from the younger generations, the small kids, like my kids and your kids and everybody here around. We have to have this attitude that we have to think and realize that where we are going to be in the future and how we are going to act about that. That's it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Shahad and Rufaida, for the nice discussion, and your Spectrum members. Now over to you, the audience. Back to the motion again. How do you believe? Did you change your mind? And I think we had a big bias, as you can see still now, towards the strongly agreed. Do we see a difference now, or is it still sustained as an opinion? So back to the motion. It's the world has enough natural resources to sustain the energy transition towards a clean, sustainable energy by 2050. So please scan up the Zoom link and put out your vote, and the time will start now. Can you please share the results on the screen? The discussion now. I see more neutral now. Well done.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe confuse more. But it's right, yeah. Debates are. Let's wait for more votes.
Yeah.
So can you put it again? Oh. The time is okay, I can see it. But can you put the vote? Oh, it's there.
Yeah.
No one strongly disagrees?
No one.
Oh. No, I think it's just cropped out from the.
No, it's okay. In the second
Sorry,
one,
guys.
okay.
So the strongly disagree is in the second. The order has been messed up. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So strongly agree, strongly disagree, and then
Okay.
neutral.
A lot of people agree.
I would argue that there are now way more people on strongly disagree side. I think they were just 5.
Yeah.
So we'll maybe keep it for 10
more seconds. I see the timer now. And while doing so, can you put the old vote next to it? It's not ordered. So the time is up now. We can close the votes. Maybe we can now share the results. Are you confused? Well, how do you feel? Do you feel now you're stirred into the right direction, or you have a better understanding? ولا سكوت علامة الرضا إن شاء الله نقول. Okay. So now let's see results.
Okay.
So for sure, at the beginning, we were, most of the audience are biasing toward the strongly agree side. It has reduced. I think they're mostly neutralized opinions and some increased disagreeing people. So sorry, I'm going to take it towards this direction. So as a winner, maybe. But well done, all of you. I think it's been an amazing discussion. Thank you so much. So you want to maybe now hand some certificates and please, and have a group photo. Dr. Abdel Jabbar, please. Professor Dali, take a picture, please.
Professor Bassam Dali, Dr. Amjad, Dr. Atif.
Dr. Atif.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful day. We also, for the UN negotiation workshop, please
Find Umar.
find Umar. I think
Umar is there. He's
in the middle of the room. You'll have your workshop with him in
3 minutes.
In 30 minutes?
3 minutes.
In 10 minutes.
Let's take a picture now.
Yes, let's have a group picture. Amar, could you join us for the group picture as well?
Thank you so much. It's been amazing والله.
Thank you.
نيوترال صراحة بروحك شو ما شاء الله وديتيهم.
Before we go, we have these brochures for the volunteers. We would love to thank you all for those who volunteered with us. Also active participants from the previous debates. Please come pick your brochures and all the amazing people who helped us through this journey. Moving forward, okay, I have one more announcement later after the